We should all be humming more. I feel like that's, an old Italian mother thing to hum around while cooking. And we need to do that more.
Yeah, let's do it right now. Let's just do like a hum. Should we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Everybody do this with us. You start. Do you
Take
have
a
any
deep
pitch?
breath and feel more of a vibration. Or sometimes people go, and you can feel that from your crown all the way down to your root, right? I think
you can feel it vibrating up through your cheeks, like everywhere. This is StRest. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. So every episode of StRest is recorded because I have an interest in whatever we're talking about. I don't just bring on guests. I bring on ones that I want to know the research for myself and for people that I help and that I service. And in this episode, we hit on so many questions that I've had for a very long time, so much so that we're going to have to do a follow-up on some of them. So just a few of the things that we talk about: detox, butyrate, suppositories, getting your supplements through suppositories, glutathione, the connection between hearing loss and cognitive decline. It should scare you. Same thing with eyesight. NAD, methyl blue, and depression and how it can help treat that. And the big one, melatonin. This all comes from 4-time author Dr. John Lieurance. He's a chiropractic neurologist, he's a naturopath, and he focuses on regenerative and alternative medicine, including inner ear disorders, things like tinnitus, neurological conditions, and also chronic illness. And partially since he has been through this, even since he was in utero, you're going to hear, things were stacked up against him. He's the chief scientific officer of Mitozen. It is a health technology company that develops advanced delivery systems like nasal sprays as well as liposomal formulas. Dr. Lieurance has trained doctors worldwide. He directs the Functional Cranial Release Research Institute, and his mission is to help people detox, to clean up their cells, to heal, and then to restore their bodies. Your mind's about to be blown by Dr. John Lieurance. Stay with us. There's so much more to come. I'm super into the research right now when it comes to creatine and collagen. In fact, let's talk creatine for a second. And the one that I trust happens to be Ancient Nutrition. Research shows that women naturally have 70 to 80% lower creatine stores than men, which means we're ideal candidates for it. And collagen we know is important not only as a protein, but it's also great for joint health. And I've been feeling the joints a little bit more. I'm in my 40s. I have that cold shoulder, women's 40 thing, that there's a lot of different things we can do, but it's really important to pump up your collagen. So I'm doing the two together, collagen and creatine, and there's actually a new product from Ancient Nutrition that puts the two of those together. Creatine is one of the most clinically studied supplements, and it's a game changer for women's wellness. It supports cognitive health. That's what I love the most about it. Muscle endurance and recovery, and it helps you build long, lean muscles and strength while staying sharp. And then you pair that with clinically studied collagen, which is what we get from all of our Ancient Nutrition products, and that can help you improve your joint comfort, your mobility, and your recovery. I take it right after a workout in the morning, and I still also love multi-collagen proteins and those peptides in my coffee every morning as well. So support your brain and your body and your beauty every single day with Ancient Nutrition, so you can look toned, you can feel strong, and you can stay sharp. Here's what you do. You go over to ancientnutrition.com and put in the code STREST20. That's STREST20, STREST20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off site-wide. Get your collagen, get your creatine, get your Ancient Nutrition. Dr. John Lieurance, it's so nice to have you on the StRest podcast. You've come highly recommended by other guests, so thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome, Kirsten. It's a pleasure to be here.
I would love for you to kind of jump into your story, your healing story, and what you do for others.
Yeah, I call it pain to purpose. I got that term from a good friend of mine, Dan Pompa, and Dr. Dan Pompa. Um,
Love him.
yeah, yeah. Have you had him on as a guest?
He's coming up. Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, you'll enjoy him. He's so
Yeah.
we really kind of came from a very similar background in regards to suffering from Lyme and mold, and just getting really, really sick, and basically looking everywhere and not finding any answers at all. And then finally, I did find the answers, which was I tested myself for Lyme, and then it was like, holy smokes, I've got Lyme. Then I went and did some more extensive testing with like Epstein-Barr and other co-infections, because notoriously what happens with this spirochete, Borrelia burgdorferi, it causes this disruption in a T cell called CD57. And what's great is we can test this, right? So anybody that's got mystery illnesses, like this is like really good gem of information here. LabCorp is the best place to test it. And so my CD57 was basically like next to nothing, right? So basically, what this is it's a fighter cell that goes into this like really deep permanent state of senescence, right? And so it's a highly um, um, inoperative immune cell, and we don't like them, right? And so then you have all these opportunistic infections, like everything from Candida, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, all the different herpes families, um, and it's just crippling. You have chronic anxiety, the inflammation is just through the roof. It gets into your joints, um, and so I have some permanent damage, to my spine and to my shoulder and to other joints, because the infection was there for so long, it just kind of eroded it. Um, so it's good to try to get at this as fast as you can.
Tell me again what we're testing for. CD.
CD57. So we're kind of going back in history. So I have a more recent healing journey. I think you were really referring to more, but this commonality I have with Dr. Pompa was this realization that it all boils down to the cell, right? And that the cell is where, life begins and ends, in the cell membrane in particular, and that toxins accumulate in the cell membrane, heavy metals, all the man-made chemicals that everybody's trying to get rid of, right? We're trying to have better laundry detergent. We're trying to minimize our makeup and our soaps and sprays and all these, because there's these chemicals are like forever chemicals, the plastics.
It's true.
So these things get into your cell. They're hormone disruptors because your hormones act on the membrane. So you got like problems with your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your brain doesn't work very well, right? So there's all these different downstream problems that then main medicine is going to then focus on as a symptom, and then match it with the newest, latest, and greatest drug that's been approved for that indication, all the while ignoring what's really causing the problem. And so what we discovered is that if we go through a process of cleansing this cell membrane, and there's very specific ways to do that. And when you step back, you really kind of consider this. It's very disruptive, I think, in especially for modern, pharmaceutical based medicine. But it really gets you to understand that all disease is from toxins and or infections, or both, right? And it's more likely that we become toxic, and we get toxic from either getting toxins from outside, or we make our own toxins. It's called exogenous toxins. Like if we're not efficient at making energy, we spew a lot of toxins in the form of oxidation, right? Um, and so we have to look at all of these things and realize, like, okay, where the toxicity builds up, and then it's the terrain that's toxic and acidic that then lends itself to the invaders of the infection, right? And so this is really how it works in the real world. So when we start looking at patients, we want to start looking, okay, what infections do they might have? And I run a panel, and I'm usually able to find things that most people can't find. Things like this CD57. I don't know. It's rare to meet a primary care doc that's either a DO or an MD that's even heard of this before, right? Yet,
And what is it levels that we're looking for? Let's say that I am able to go to a lab tour and get, or have a DO, or I have a practitioner who's willing to run it. What are you looking for?
So the normal is 100 or more, right? So you want that you want to have these cells to be high, right? When they get low, then you know that they're like sleepy and they're not working. And so if it's below 100, so they I don't like it to be below 60 really functionally. But if it's between 160, you're gonna, most practitioners are gonna look at the report and say, well, you're within normal limits, right? But really, you want to pay attention. And so it's not the end all be all test, but it's like if you're trying to figure some tough things out on what might be causing certain chronic diseases, then this is something to definitely look at.
So tell me more of what you might be experiencing if it really is a cellular level that we're dealing with. You mentioned some things that are kind of buzzwords for people who listen to this podcast: anxiety, inflammation, fibromyalgia, that feeling of just I'm not okay in my body. I just don't
Yeah.
feel good. Constant lethargy.
Yes.
Brain fog is a big one. And it's interesting, doctor, because this also blurs the lines a lot of what's happening in perimenopause and menopause, though.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to consider. Things can be, there's confounders, right? We call them confounders. So it's like when you get to a point where you're trying to make a decision on, what path to take to get better, to feel better, to be more resilient, to live longer, all of these things, then it can be complex, right? Because there's a lot of different things to consider, like with what you mentioned with menopause and perimenopausal. So it's important to, hormones are just really important to look at. However, besides looking at the actual raw numbers as far as hormones, we need to think about, like, are the hormones being able to be activated? And I'll give you a good example with thyroid. Not a lot of people really consider this, but thyroid is active in the tissues. It's not active in the blood, but we're testing thyroid in the blood, right? And so what happens is that thyroid hormone needs to get into the tissues, and then it starts to act in the tissues. And so there's a procedure where you check your basal temperature. And this is a thyroid test, and it's an old one, but it's still something that we like to use and we like to look at. But these basal thermometers are special thermometers that you can get. A lot of times people use it to see if they're pregnant because you get a spike in your temperature. So you get these basal thermometers at the health food store. I'm sorry, at the drugstore, and you catalog your temperature, right? And if you notice that your temperature starts getting into like 96, 95 consistently, then you know that your thyroid hormone isn't really working very well, the functionality of the thyroid. So a lot of more advanced functional practitioners will actually go ahead and give patients like a T3, like a straight T3, because you
Hmm.
have to convert T4 into T3, and then the T3 is what, and part of that is it's like the gas pedal to all of your cells. But if you're all junked up with toxins and you got mercury and, you know, plastics and pesticides and all these things in your cell membrane, then that's going to be like a problem for that hormone to activate that cellular response, right? So we want to clean up the cell. So it is important to look at all of these levels, not just look at the blood, but consider, the basal temperature is a great test to do. I
So
think
we
we should
know
probably
test
change.
is best. And we would hope that anybody listening or watching will have a fantastic functional doctor that they can do testing with. But let's say that we don't. Let's say we're just going on symptoms, and And let's assume that we're talking to somebody who we know probably is loaded up with toxins. How are you helping people and what can we do to detox from them?
So good question. Yeah, everybody's toxic. I mean, the toxicity is just through the roof because the we've enjoyed this industrial revolution and we have not had any brake systems on the production of chemicals. And then there's been a lot of like kind of backroom, good old boy deals done with regards to disposing of chemicals. And the way that they make landfills now are much safer. You know, it's not leaching into the water. And what's one of in the beginning of the conversation, you had asked me about my personal pain to purpose. And speaking of water contamination, when if anybody's heard of um, Camp Lejeune and the water
Hmm.
contamination injury, so I was in utero, and my first 2 years of life on that base. My sister has a chronic disease. My mother has a chronic disease. My dad has leukemia. And from a young age, I had asthma. I was really, really sensitive. When I found myself in, my father got stationed to Hawaii, and then I was placed in special education classes just because I couldn't deal. I had a lot of confusion and hyperactivity. Most likely, part of that is from the toxicity from living on Camp Lejeune. But we look back to your more recent question. We look at the toxicity, and there's tests that can be done to look at patients' levels of toxicity. Like um, you can do tests through. There's something called oligoscan that we use here, oligoscan, and it actually sends light into the skin, and it's actually testing the tissues. And you can do blood tests to see like, hey, what's your blood mercury level and all these types of things. But it's important to do some sort of a chelator before you do that. A lot of doctors might do an IV with like EDTA or DMPS or something like that, that like draws these metals out of your tissues. And then they'll have you collect your urine. They can collect your blood. They can test your hair. There's something called the tri test where you do your hair, urine, and your saliva, and you can use a provoking agent. So there's a lot of different possibilities with at least with regards to like heavy metals, which is a big problem. So we do that in the clinic, and then we just besides the testing that we do, we just kind of assume that people are toxic. You know?
Yeah, that's what I would assume too, right? We all probably have a problem with heavy metals.
Oh, for sure. So we like to begin a cell membrane cleansing protocol, right? And the primary 80% of your cell membranes is phosphatidylcholine, and so phosphatidylcholine is also very high in egg yolk, right? And we know like egg yolk's kind of like you can shake it up in water and it would like dissolve right into tiny little vesicles, right? Or liposomes, right? So phosphatidylcholine is something that's really good to take orally as a supplement, and it converts into choline, which can help memory, and that's kind of a nice side benefit. But it also taking it on a regular basis can be helpful to kind of flush the cell membranes out and help to kind of cleanse the liver. So this is one of my favorite supplements actually. Um, there's butyrate is another substance probably a lot of people don't talk about. Um, are you familiar with butyrate?
Yes, I am, but please explain.
Okay. So butyrate is a byproduct of a healthy microbiome, right? And if you smell butyrate, it kind of smells like a real healthy bowel movement. We just full disclosure, I have a company called Mitozen Scientific, and we make a variety of different products, very unique. We have a line of suppositories, and one of the suppositories that we make is contains butyrate and probiotics, and it's called Probiomax. And this has been like an old, um, kind of an old method of helping the body heal from the naturopathic side of medicine, where they would take butyrate and do like an implant. So you can do rectal implants where So we're talking about suppositories and rectal implants. Here we go. We're going.
Let's do it. This is why I invited you, doctor.
So why do we do these things? Because there's great absorption through the rectum. The lining is very thin with the blood vessels there, and so we skip first pass through the liver, and we also don't have a lot of those nutrients broken down by the digestive enzymes in the gut and stomach. So a lot of people don't and can't afford to go get an IV every day. But when you look at suppositories, you're literally talking about, and my first time, I'm like, okay, I don't know about this, right? But this was in the middle of me being really sick with Lyme disease, and I was willing to do anything. And I had so much inflammation. And the first suppository I ever did was a 600 milligram glutathione suppository, which we make this, it's called Glutamax 600. And anyway, I put it in. I didn't even know it was there, right? It was like, and I took it before bed. I woke up the next day, and Kirsten, I could not believe how much better I felt. I was like, the inflammation was down. So, glutathione is a really cool molecule because it's anti-inflammatory, it's antiviral, and it helps sleep. So it supports sleep. That's why we like to put it in our Sandman line of suppositories that have melatonin and glutathione. I think you wanted to talk a little
Oh,
bit
yeah,
about.
I can't wait to go there. But keep talking about glutathione because this is fantastic. And who should be taking it, do you think?
Well, and it's one other thing. It's great for the liver. In fact, a healthy liver produces a lot of glutathione, so it's one of the ways that we detox. So glutathione is this sulfur helix that basically wraps around toxins and chaperones them out of the body. So whenever we're doing like a detox, let's say that we want to like do like a cellular detox. Well, I might have somebody taking um, phosphatidylcholine and taking some butyrate, right? Priming that pump, kind of getting some toxins to get dislodged out of the cell membrane. But then I think it would be important to follow that up maybe that night with doing some binders along with glutathione and like a suppository like a Glutamax 600 before bed. And that way, you're not only getting the toxins dislodged, but you're actually making a pathway to carry it out of the body. And that's really important because if you don't do that, what happens is so the cell membrane, all of this is fat soluble toxins. The real bad, gnarly stuff, they're fat soluble. That's what we really need to get, you know, good with is getting rid of these fat because those are the forever toxins that get into our body and never go away and they accumulate in our brain, right? So as a functional chiropractic neurologist, I look at a lot of complex neurological cases to not so complex. And, one of the first signs of a brain that's going south is depression, mood disorders, anxiety. We start having more tension in our body, right? We can't relax. It's harder to relax. We start feeling more disconnected to the ground and to the world, right? Our eyes aren't able to move properly. I wish we had a lot more time because I would love to talk to you about some of the work we're doing with realigning the eyes and the ocular and the head. Like the head and the eyes are supposed to be in a gimbal, and this whole system is so fragile. And when it comes out, when it gets out of its normal firing sequence, it really causes a ton of stress to the brain. And so as the brain starts to go south from a chemical standpoint, then we can actually start having software problems so that we're not updating a lot of systems to keep our joints and our body and our spine and everything else healthy. So all of these can be fixed, right? But you have to look at the structure, the function, the mental, emotional, physical, chemical, and all of these things, electromagnetic, all of these things are important in today's age.
Is that what I think I've heard before that eyesight and hearing, if they start to weaken, you need to start addressing that right away to prevent Alzheimer's dementia?
I love it. You brought up hearing. I just released a book called Sunave, which in Hindu, Sunave means hearing. And um, early on in my practice, I've been practicing, I can't even believe it, 31 years.
Wow.
So, um, I've gone through a lot of transitions through those period of time. And, I I've been attracting a lot of people with inner ear problems from an earlier point in my career because I started getting into doing a lot of cranial work. And I talk about this work that I do in the book and quite extensively. But it was kind of a springboard for me to start to stack more modalities onto the cranial work that I was doing. The idea with the inner ear is that we want great circulation, right? We need circulation because circulation brings in the groceries and takes out the garbage, right? And as we get older, we lose circulation, and then we have such a loud environment in today's world. There's just so much insult with sound, um, that these damage the hair cells, and these hair cells are what transmit mostly the high frequency, because those are the hair cells that are on the outside of the cochlea, so the sound hits them first, and so we start to lose that high frequency. But they've done studies where they found that even a slight bit, even moderate amount of hearing loss can cause significant, like 5 times more prevalent to have degenerative neurologic disease and cognitive
Wow.
decline. It's because the brain wants to be activated, right? We have our senses, like we talked about our eyes, fixing the eyes. I'd love to do more studies, but I would imagine that you could probably have a connection with that when, ocular functional, I'm not talking about visual, but functional ocular movements, the sensation with even taste, right? And smell and hearing. These things keep the brain healthy. Like the Chinese proverb is the unused gate gets the rust, right? The brain wants to be activated. It's neuro 101, fuel and activation, right? We need adequate fuel supply, and we need the brain to be activated and properly activated, right? And when that doesn't happen, we start to get a lot of brain fog. We start to set the situation where our memory starts to go south. Um, we get confused more easily. We get stressed out more easily. It's harder for us to relax. We start to get depression and anxiety and things like that. Those are all really common. And then gut issues. If you can believe it or not, when the brain starts to go south, the brain isn't firing. There's a part of the brain called the autonomic nervous system. Okay. And this is a very, very important system because this is split into two parts. It's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is going to lead us very nicely into melatonin, because when we understand that we have this sympathetic fight or flight side of our nervous system, and then we have our parasympathetic resting and digesting side of our nervous system. And then what if this autonomic nervous system really becomes challenged? What does that look like? Well, people get really dizzy, they can't, because you can't maintain the blood supply up to the brain. So you get up and you kind of get a little woozy. You might start to have some vertigo or some dizziness set in. The digestive tract doesn't work very well, because when you have to fight or run from a bear or something like that, the last thing you need to be worrying about is shunting blood to your
It's
gut
digestion,
so that you
right?
can digest. So when we're like stuck in that sympathetic situation, a lot of people are, then we need to start thinking about what types of things can we do to balance that out, where we get more of that resting and digesting, more of that calming, more of that relaxation to the nervous system, more of that parasympathetic nervous system, that parasympathetic side to the autonomic nervous system. So then, um, we start thinking about the vagus nerve, right? And so this is the key nerve that people are going to be talking about, like a vagal nerve stimulator. Like, we can go do that. Yeah, you could do that. That's one thing. There's a lot of great ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. Did you know, Kirsten, that you can stimulate the vagus nerve by doing breath work?
Yes. And
And it
humming too. Doesn't humming or singing do it?
humming's fantastic. Yes. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
And humming
so
stimulates the microbiome in the nasal cavity too.
we should all be humming more. I feel like that's, an old Italian mother thing to hum around
Mm,
while cooking. And we need to do that more.
yeah. Let's do it right now. Let's just do like a hum. Should we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Everybody do this with us. You
Okay.
start. Do
Let's
you
take
have
a
any
deep breath
pitch?
in. Yep. Feel more of a vibration. Or sometimes people go, ah, and you can feel that from your crown all the way down to your root, right? I
You
think,
can, you can, I mean, you can feel it vibrating up through your cheeks, like everywhere.
yeah, I think it's called like japa meditation. I listened to a Wayne Dyer tape at one point, and he went through this, and it's just a hum, the whole meditation. And I remember how great I feel. It's reminding me to go back. Starts with a J. I think it's called japa, but I could be totally wrong.
That's great. We'll be right back. Don't go away. It's just getting good. All right, you know I'm always telling you to get your labs done, and I'm insisting that you get specific labs done. Now there's a place to get all of that done for $199. This episode of StRest is thankfully brought to you by Superpower. It's the membership that gives you real answers about your health. What you get with Superpower is 100+ lab tests every single year, and they check everything from heart health to hormones to inflammation, and it's just for $199. No fighting with your doctor, no fighting with insurance. It's a 15-minute lab visit. The labs are everywhere around the US. You get your results in about 5 days. And here's the biggest piece that I love is that you also get a dashboard that gives you ideas and recommendations based on your lab work for your diet, for your lifestyle, which supplements you should take, even prescriptions. Here's the absolute best part. 63% of members discover early risk factors for diabetes. 44% uncover elevated heart disease risk. And 70% slow their pace of aging. Superpower is giving you superpower. It's lab data for real life changes. Join today. Go to superpower.com/Kerstin. That's KERSTIN. Superpower.com/Kerstin. Let's go back to suppositories. So my first and only experience with suppositories was when I was pregnant. In order to stay pregnant, was we did suppositories there. But and trying to get pregnant and things like that. I've had friends who have done them, other people on the podcast, and very, very effective. If somebody's going to start, where do they start? Do you think that the glutathione is the way to go? Talk to me about Sandman and melatonin. I'm very intrigued in that one too.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, because it's been researched very, very thoroughly, that the absorption of melatonin orally is only 2.5%.
Wow.
Like, that's all it makes it into your bloodstream. And so just think about this as we start to conversate about the really high doses I'm going to start talking to you about, right? That some people are taking 1 and 2 milligrams, right? And then you only get 2.5% of that gets into the blood. I mean, we're truly talking homeopathic amounts of melatonin. And so we have certain nutrients that don't get into the body very well. And that's why doctors may do IVs with patients. You know, like high dose vitamin C IV, we can't take it orally. We get this flushing, right? Anybody that's taken a lot of vitamin C knows, you get the diarrhea because the gut can't absorb enough that would be matched to doing it as an IV. So there's reasons we don't really have time to get into why we would want to do really high doses of vitamin C in an IV. But other nutrients that don't absorb well are like NAD plus.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a suppository called NAD Max, and that NAD Max also has both precursors to NAD and R, which is nicotinamide riboside and nicotinamide mononucleotide. It's like mouthfuls there.
Yeah,
Tongue,
seriously.
yeah. But these are really good for the mitochondria, right? They're kind of sister molecules to niacin. They can be really helpful for people to boost brain, like particular brain energy, right? And it comes from a lot of the research they did with addiction, and they found that people were able to get through withdrawals and feel happier and more social much quicker because alcohol, poor sleep, chronic disease, toxins, all of these things like are really, really strong headwinds that allow us to not have high NAD, that deplete our NAD levels. So boosting those NAD levels can be done with suppositories, I think, among the most eloquently out of any other way that you can do it, because it's quite uncomfortable getting it as an IV, and you have to sit
Mhm.
there for hours, and it's very costly. So the amount in one Glutamax is about 1,000 milligrams total, where, most IV centers are going to do 250 to 500 milligrams, and that's it. And so it's a lot more. It's more convenient, and then you could do it like 3 times a week. You can really get the NAD levels higher. Um,
In terms of melatonin, though, I have a love-hate relationship with melatonin because I think it really impacts me, and it helps get my deep sleep up, which is what I struggle with the most, if you ask my trackers. And but I've always heard, oh, you don't want to take too much melatonin, you want to cycle it because your body stops producing it.
yeah, that's a really great questions, and I'm glad you asked that. I thought the same thing. I mean, I all these years practicing, I think it was maybe 7, 8 years ago that I was doing an internship with a very famous doctor. His name's Frank Schallenberger. Are you familiar with Dr. Schallenberger?
I haven't. I'll look him up though.
Yeah, so he's kind of considered like his big claim to fame is like ozone. Like he brought ozone from
Mm.
Germany to the United States, and he was a functional doctor in the late '80s. Like, I mean, he's a pioneer. So I was doing an internship, and he was using these, hundreds of milligrams of melatonin with a lot of his cancer patients and a lot of his neurological cases. And I had just recovered from Lyme and mold, and I was still having some brain fog and word finding issues. And I said, Frank, and he had a cancellation. I said, can I step in and maybe, have you take a look at me? So he put me on 200 milligrams of melatonin day and night. Okay. And what he told me was that, and that was my concern. I said, well, it's going to shut down my production. He said, it doesn't. It's the one hormone that has no negative feedback loop. Like all of the other hormones have a negative feedback loop, and melatonin doesn't. It's produced in a tiny amount in your pineal based on light hitting your retina. Okay. And so the amount of light that we get during a 24-hour period of time, so from the time that we wake up in the morning to the time we go to sleep, the amount of photons, the quantity of photons, the intensity, all of that matters as to how much we store. And then when we go into complete darkness, we're going to dump that melatonin. But when we look at the graph as we get older, once you hit 40, I mean, pull it up. Do yourself a big favor and pull up a graph of melatonin and age, and you're going to be like, holy smokes. Like by the time you're 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you got like nothing left, no matter what biohacking you do, blue blocking glasses. And I mean, you want to protect your circadian rhythm. Don't get me wrong, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's why we always say sun before screens and get outside. And it's probably why you sleep better when you're like on vacation and you're outside all day.
For sure. Yeah. But just staying active, being out in the sun, the photons through your skin, right? I mean, and on top of it with your eyes. So you think about like how often you're wearing sunglasses, right? This can be a bit of a thought. And so that system is totally like siloed. It's separate, right? And so then you have the conversation about melatonin as it relates to your brain and your parasympathetic nervous system. So we get to circle back on that and how important that is. And if we imagine melatonin going down that much as we get older, right? And then we realize that as we get older, we're having all these symptoms that are related to a poor autonomic nervous system where our gut isn't functioning as robustly, right? And our nerves are a little bit more edgy, right? It's harder for us to relax. We start slowing down a little bit, and um, so then we think about the extra pineal melatonin. That's the melatonin that's not in your pineal, and that's a conversation that Russell Ryder, right, who's really considered, in my opinion, like this is the most studied, researched doctor on melatonin, and he's in his late 80s now, and he's been an author on like over 1,000 articles on melatonin. And he was the guy that actually discovered that the pineal was more than just a worthless gland in the 1960s. So he's got that. But he's a very dear man, and so he takes 1 to 200 milligrams every night himself. You're talking about the most studied guy. Now, he looks at disease, right? He's looking at all these different animal models. He looks at some human models, and he's trying to see, like, how can you mitigate disease? How can you extend life? How can you make when people get sick, right? There's the possibilities of healing from that, right? We get cancer, we can have cancer go into remission, right? Sometimes it's too late, right? And sometimes it's a matter of making life more comfortable, you know. And this goes for pets too, by the way. I'm going to rewrite my book. I have a book on Amazon called Melatonin Miracle Molecule, and I'm going to do a second edition all with animals and pets, because I have got a dog, and I love animals, and I'm so
It's
attached.
funny because I was told to give my dog melatonin as well. She has, I don't know, like doggy alopecia. She's lost a lot of her hair, and they said give her melatonin.
Oh yeah.
My question though is, okay, 200 milligrams day and night. Did you sleep through like the next week of like what? How did that
So,
work?
so just to clarify, I'm not recommending that everybody go run out and start doing 200 milligrams during the day, because most people can tolerate it. You'll feel a little bit calm, right? But as long as you have light in your eye, it's not going to activate that deep kind of sleep situation. So I tolerated it fine. I did it for a few months, and I found that it just did all these amazing things for my skin. I'm 55 years old now, and I get so many compliments on how much younger I look than my true age, and I got to tell you, I looked a lot older after this whole bout with Lyme and mold. I lost a lot of weight, my skin. I just going on this high dose we call super physiological dose of melatonin for years. I have noticed massive changes in my physical body. We even have a melatonin cream called Mitoskin, and so that can be a powerful combination to take melatonin both internally and externally, as people are looking for like an aesthetic shift. Um,
What is the dosage that you have in Sandman? And tell people what that is.
Okay, so we have the line of Sandman includes the regular Sandman suppository has 200 milligrams of melatonin and 250 milligrams of glutathione, and it's got some extra cofactors and terpenes and probiotics and things like that. All of our suppositories are really scientifically designed to amplify the nutrients that are in them and to provide support for the colon as well. We have like probiotics that we put in them. Um, and then we have Super Sandman that's 400 milligrams of melatonin, and it has no glutathione in it. And so for folks that are going up to that higher dose of the 400, oftentimes we may have them take a Glutamax along with the Super Sandman to get that glutathione in, especially if people are really dealing with a lot of health issues. We like to get that number up as much as that folks can tolerate. Now that brings up a good point. So um, some people have a hard time kind of getting into taking these higher doses of melatonin. Most people do fine. Take it, you just go right in, you take 200 milligrams. You're maybe going to feel a little bit more groggy in the morning than normal, but get sunlight in your eyes. That's the magic. Okay. You can
Yeah,
start
that's how you do it first.
yeah, you start with half, or you can do a quarter even, and then kind of build up. But when you wake up, if you're really finding like, oh, I feel really groggy, two things I would suggest. One is you might be a slow metabolizer of melatonin, so take it at dinner time or even before dinner, and you'll notice you're not gonna be freight train where you have to go to sleep. You'll go to sleep when there's total darkness. And then by the time you wake up, there's been enough time where your body's been able to process all of that melatonin. And then the other trick is to get light in your eyes. Other than that, it's a very well tolerated. And then we have Sandman in what's called bars, and these are these time released, and they're like little squares. So it comes like in a kind of like a package. Kind of looks like this. This is our methylene blue. You see these little squares?
Yeah.
So you pop them out, and then you can cut them into like quarters if you want. So it's easy to like dose less than 200 if you want. So we have that Sandman bar with and without methylene blue. And so that is really convenient to travel with, I'll tell you. If you want to make travel like super, super smooth, I would say like NAD on the plane is very, very protective, right?
Taking notes.
Luke's story is the one that stumbled on this little gem, and he writes extensively about travel hacking and traveling with grace. And then the other thing is methylene blue. To boost your mitochondria, it also will prevent you from catching things. We have a essential oil nasal spray called Glutastat that we recommend people use just even daily, just for nasal hygiene, but especially when you travel. And and then when you arrive to your destination, you want to do some high dose melatonin, because if you cross some time zones, Ben Greenfield's a huge fan of the Sandman products as well, and he likes the
Yeah, I
super.
think that's where I heard of them first. I'm very, very interested. On Stress, we talk a lot about supporting the systems in your life that hold you up, your habits, your routines, sleep, but that also includes your feet. Remember that song we used to sing, knee bone connected to the hip bone? That's not right, but you know where I'm going with this, right? It's all connected, and it starts with your feet. And if you're like me, you probably sacrificed comfort to style more times than you can count. I was able to join Revitalign when I worked at QVC to create really, really great shoes, flip-flops, sandals for you for many years. And now they are a sponsor of StRest. I love this brand. My entire family wears them. It's all about aligning your body from the ground up, literally, but also doing it with super cute styles. I wear them around the house, on long days of filming, even traveling, of course, down at the beach. And the difference is my body feels better at the end of the day. And that's what I want for you as well. Going into a new season, make sure you get yourself new, good shoes. And we have a discount for you. Visit wacoshoecompany.com. That's WACO shoecompany.com, and enter the code Kerstin, KERSTIN 20 for 20% off. Everything from really cute wedges to boots to sneakers. Get out there and get your sneakers. That's Waco Shoe Company, WACO shoecompany.com, and put in the code Kerstin20, KERSTIN 20. So you get 20% off and support yourself from the ground up. I want you to talk about methylene blue real quick, because I've also talked to people and listened about that. And you're like, how do I know this is working? And do I need to be taking this?
Right. So, and that's another book I wrote. In fact, just released the third edition to Magic Bullet. That's the name of the book. It's Magic Bullets on Amazon. But methylene blue, really interesting molecule. I hold methylene blue up. Like, I just think that melatonin is just such a precious, like there would not be any life without melatonin, right? And taking melatonin is the single most, it's the biggest and best suggestion I would have for anyone that wanted to be healthy and stay healthy. Okay, so now methylene blue. Now methylene blue is kind of in that family, except methylene blue is a synthetic molecule. It's like, well, wait a minute. I thought you were a naturopath. I thought you were all natural. This is like synthetic. It's synthetic. It's synthetic. And so the way that they make these synthetic molecules is from petroleum. And petroleum is basically ancient plant matter, but it's organic molecules. And what they can do is take those organic molecules and they can build larger molecules. And that's the way most all of our medicines are made, believe it or not, is they're petroleum based. And so methylene blue, now out of hundreds of thousands of synthetic molecules, they've never found one molecule that even closely resembles what methylene blue does at a cellular level. And what that is it lubricates something called the electron transport chain, among other things. So it gives us cellular energy independent of oxygen, right? And so this can be really, really protective for us. Like sometimes surgeons will have people using methylene blue while they're doing brain surgery because the brain tissue, if it's saturated with methylene blue, will survive a lot longer without oxygen because that methylene blue is in there working with the mitochondria. But methylene blue is also antimicrobial. Like it's like an antibiotic, right? Powerful antimicrobial, especially if you use methylene blue along with red light, specifically red light in the spectrum of 660 nanometers, because that's the secret sauce. And if you think about methylene blue being brilliantly blue, it's absorbing red, right? It's opposite, and it's reflecting blue. And so once that methylene blue gets into the mitochondria, for whatever reason, God built this molecule to just want to go right into your mitochondria. It's like, hey, everybody, let's go. We're going into the mitochondria. Hey, you want to go over here? No, we're going mitochondria. That's it. So it's provided it to be a helpful staining agent for biologists um, to stain different tissues to be able to see what's going on. And in fact, that's how they discovered that methylene blue was the cure to malaria. And
Wow.
Paul Ehrlich was doing studies, and so he had all of these different medicines that he wanted to test. He has his petri dish. He adds his methylene blue to it. He's watching it, right? And then he's like, "Holy smokes!" So then the parasite that carried the malaria dies just with the methylene blue before he even starts his experiment. And so he realizes that methylene blue is the cure. And so then methylene blue gets launched as like this, like it was the most incredible thing because malaria was preventing us from taking over the world, right? It's like we were out in, taking over marshes and jungles and, doing a lot of really bad things that capitalism does. And malaria was like one of the biggest problems for us to be able to do that. And they even talk about how because you'll pee blue after you take it, right?
Yeah, that's what I hear.
And it can be fun in the snow. Yeah, like if
Ah.
you're skiing, it can be a lot of fun. So, but don't let that bother you. It excretes through the urine, and if you stumble on like an article, there's some naysayers out there. I'm trying
There
to like
are.
get to some like points that like are being brought up. Like people talk about the fact that it's a synthetic molecule and that it's derived from petroleum as if it's like so toxic, and it's like it's like you're equate. It's not science, right? You're going from point A to point Z, and it's like without really evaluating things, ignoring this massive body of research on methylene blue. Do you know that it actually clears out a lot of the protein tangles that lead to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and um, a lot of different brain injuries? The beta amyloid plaque is
So,
primarily.
what is it that you recommend then taking? How much?
Oh, with methylene blue? Well,
Hmm.
um, I don't want to give medical advice over the
The
podcast.
podcast.
We do distance coaching if anybody's interested in reaching out. I have a team that I've trained, and we work with people all over the world. But that would be my suggestion would be having someone that understands methylene blue work with you in particular. But I can say this, from zero point 0.5 to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so use Siri or whatever and just ask how much how many kilograms for how many pounds you weigh, get your kilogram, and then multiply that times, you know, whatever number, right? If you go zero point 0.5, I'd say a lot of the people that I work with tend to really do well. The sweet spot about 1.5 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. Our Lumitol Blue bars are, we have them in 180 and 40 milligram bars. And the 180 is really the best way to go, because then you can cut it into whatever amounts you want. And it's the most cost affordable there. Um, and so it's like a lot of females, we may have them around anywhere from like 30 to 45 milligrams. Males, we might have them anywhere from 60 to like 90 milligrams per day. Now, in situations where somebody might be sick or there might be other situations, that dose can be raised up temporarily. Like when I'm traveling, sometimes I'll do higher doses on several days in a row, just because it gives me that extra boost. Now, they also did large clinical trials on methylene blue and depression, and they found that it's very, very helpful for depression. And what they found is that the researchers felt that it was because the methylene blue was mopping up a very specific type of nitric oxide, right? So we have a good form of nitric oxide. We have two really good forms of nitric. They're all good, right? There's basically three forms. There's inducible, there's neuronal, and there's endothelial, right? So endothelial and neuronal are like really, really good, and like red light therapy, the sun, hyperbaric oxygen. These types of therapies are really good to kind of raise those types of nitric oxide. But then the inducible nitric oxide is meant to be a temporary thing that vasodilates, and it brings blood to an area. Like if you have an infection, right? If you cut yourself, you get a lot of inducible nitric oxide, and it brings in the groceries and takes out the garbage, right? So it brings in all those immune cells. We don't want that chronically high. So when people have chronically high inducible nitric oxide, we would assume that these individuals have a chronic infection, or they're maybe like a muscle head that's using bro science and like taking just a ton of L-arginine and just trying to ramp up their nitric oxide level just to get that pump. Now, I'm not saying that that's not bad, but it's not something that you want to do day after day after day after day all day, because what the science tells us is that what happens to that nitric oxide is that it becomes peroxynitrate. And that peroxynitrate is one of the most damaging chemicals to our endothelial lining, to our blood vessels. So the next thing you know, if you lead a life like this, you're going to have like crazy plaque and terrible, terrible circulation.
Wow.
So the
I Go
ethylene
ahead.
blue, I'm sorry, I'm like,
No, no, go, go, go.
so to kind of bring this to full circle, the methylene blue mops up the inducible nitric oxide. And the researchers were finding that the depression was a result of elevated inducible nitric oxide. And then by lowering that inducible nitric oxide, people felt happier, they felt better. And so that got me to like realize, hey, I'm on the right track as far as my thinking, that a lot of these diseases are chronic infections. So if you have depression, then you might start thinking about, okay, which stealth infection or underlying infection have I not been tested for, and that might be causing that?
I need to have you back for 2 hours next time. Doctor, you are such a wealth of information. How many books do you have published?
I've got four.
Wow. All available on Amazon, but where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram quite a bit at Dr. John Lieurance. Our clinic website is advancedrejuvenation.us. And then Mitozen is Mitozen. We do events here. If you're local in the area, we have a lot of events that we do here. I'd love to have you as a guest.
I would
Doug,
love to.
Doug's been to every one of them. Doug, by
Yeah.
the way, just so people know, like Admiral Doug Fears is how we got to get connected, and he was Homeland Security advisor under Trump, and on his in 2016, and also um, under Bush, and he is just an amazing human being. Recently retired as the admiral of the Coast
Yeah,
Guard.
you have to go back and listen to his episode. And I think when we recorded his episode, he had just come from you or
Uh-huh.
an event with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, it has been a pleasure, and I would love to have you back if you can make the time. And I would love to come down and go to one of the events and I'm super excited to try all the things from Mitozen. So thank you so much.
Yeah, or you can come down and we can do some treatments on you, even if it's not an event. But the event would be the best because you just
Yeah,
come in a little early, let's do an event, we'll get you up on stage to speak about something, and
I
then
would love it.
great.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, doctor. It's so great to meet you. Thank you for everything that you've done on the podcast, and we'll talk soon.
You're welcome, Kirsten. Thank you.
What if the root cause of your fatigue, your brain fog, your anxiety, maybe your weight loss resistance wasn't hormones or stress, but parasites? Our next guest on the next episode of StRest is known as the Worm Queen, and she's gone viral for exposing what is really living inside of us. It's so impressive to me that I started my own cleanse, and I will give you a sneak peek into how that's gone for me. You're going to want to listen to the shocking truth about what's inside of you, parasites, Lyme, toxins, and how it might be silently wrecking your health. That's the next episode of StRest. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kerstin.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.Kerstin-Lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.